Good afternoon, site coordinators and teachers. I am James Ruvalcaba, the Activity Coordinator for After School All-Stars. I am overseeing our new Institutional Effectiveness Program for the After School All-Stars. This PowerPoint presentation is designed to inform you on our Institutional Effectiveness Study and the role you play specifically in administering the online survey to students, parents, and teachers at your school. The agenda slide depicts the topics that I will be discussing. Much of the material I will cover is informational, but please pay close attention to the tasks, milestones, and timelines, as well as the site coordinator role as it pertains to this institutional effectiveness study. There's a lot of background information on the After School All-Stars program here, but I really want you to take away that although we have been around since 1994, we currently do not have an institutional effectiveness program. Additionally, even though After School All-Stars programs extend beyond middle schools and into our learning and homeless centers, the focus of the institutional effectiveness study this year will be on our 11 middle schools. The purpose of the institutional effectiveness study, in a nutshell, is twofold. We must measure our performance to our major donors to justify future funding, and secondly, we must identify ways to improve our program that focus on the 6 core components listed on this slide. It is important to note that the online surveys you are asked to administer were developed to specifically measure aspects of the 6 components of our After School All-Stars program. The Institutional Effectiveness Study Framework. This slide simply depicts that our Institutional Effectiveness Study Framework relies on the collection and analysis of quantitative data such as grade point averages, graduation rates, CRCT scores, attendance rates, and other data from the Atlanta Public School System, as well as the qualitative data from surveys and focus group interviews that students, former students, teachers, and parents will take. Note that only Coretta Scott King, Best, and Harper Archer Middle School students will participate in the focus group interviews. The Institutional Effectiveness Framework. This is a graphic display that pretty much displays the framework that was discussed in the previous slide. You can see the quantitative data depicted in orange. This is the data that we expect to receive from the Atlanta Public School System Office of Research and Evaluation for School Improvement. The data shown in blue is the qualitative data that we expect to obtain with the assistance of all site coordinators and teachers from the after-school program. It includes the surveys of all after-school all-star students, 25% of parents, 25% of all teachers at your school, not just 25% of the after-school all-star teachers, and a select group of students from Coretta Scott King, Best, and Harper Archer Middle Schools that will participate in focus group interviews. Once all the data from Atlanta Public School System and the surveys is received, it will be analyzed and we will publish a report of findings and recommendations and then implement program improvements. Focus group interviews. This slide only pertains to Coretta Scott King, Best, and Harper Archer this year. In future years, it may encompass different schools or all of our 11 Atlanta After School All-Star Middle Schools. 25% of the after-school all-star student population will be asked to participate in focus group interviews. From these 3 schools, each group will consist of 10 to 12 students from a randomly selected list, which will be provided to each site coordinator. Expect each focus group interview to last about 30 to 45 minutes, and it will be conducted by a facilitator from the after-school all-star staff. We will need support from site coordinators at these 3 schools in providing a classroom and have the students present to participate in these focus group interviews. Note that the list of randomly selected students that are asked to participate in the focus group interviews at these 3 schools can also serve as the same list for the parents that will be asked to take the parent survey. This will help better correlate the student survey and focus group responses to their parent responses. Scope and size. The scope and size of the institutional effectiveness study is limited to online students for all of our existing after-school all-star students. This is by direction of Dr. Walt Thompson, Executive Director of the After-School All-Star Program. 25% of our students at Coretta Scott King, Bass, and Harper Archer will be asked to participate in focus group interviews. 25% of former students from these three schools will also be selected to complete surveys. All site coordinators and teachers are asked to get 25% of the parents as well as 25% of all the teachers at your school to complete the survey. Note that the group of teachers can also include counselors, principals, vice principals, or librarians included in this 25% teacher group. In all, we should collect about 1,835 electronic surveys. The breakdown is depicted on the bottom of the slide. This is simply a different way to display the methods that we have used to develop our institutional effectiveness study. Your role is crucial in the online survey implementation, which is where most of the qualitative data will come from. This slide depicts the tasks, milestones, and timeline. This process began in earnest in late January. A detailed research protocol was developed with the assistance of the Office of Institutional Research from Georgia State University and the Educational Research Bureau at the College of Education at Georgia State University. Their efforts were instrumental in uploading our paper surveys into the easy-to-implement online surveys that you will use. We are currently on schedule, the point in time where you, the site coordinators and teachers, must administer the online surveys. Thereafter, we collect all the data and begin the data analysis. Even though the findings and final report will not be completed by early July, which is when we plan to have our next site coordinators conference, we should have some preliminary data to share with you about the data that was received from our specific after-school all-star program. By late July, we expect to have some program improvement recommendations that we can implement prior to next year's after-school all-star programs. Your role as a site coordinator is instrumental in setting the tone to collect quality data. Set the expectation from your students, parents, and teachers that it is important to obtain their honest assessment of our after-school all-star program. There will not be any retribution taken for any input that is received. We want to assess the strengths and weaknesses of our program so that we know what to continue doing or focus on areas that need improvement. Ensure students don't just answer all questions straight across one column. They need to assess each individual question. Moreover, they all need to include comments in the last section of the survey. They should include comments like what they like to see changed, or comment on how the after-school all-star program has helped them as a student or as a person. Since we need to keep the administering of the survey constant, we expect all site coordinators to administer the surveys to students during the after-school all-star program at your computer labs. We also recommend that you administer the surveys to the selected parents at the computer labs during your scheduled after-school all-stars family night, so that you can supervise and clarify any questions that they may not understand. You as a site coordinator and your assistant teachers play a pivotal role in the success of our institutional effectiveness study. You have three major roles: educate, implement, and coordinate. Ensure you educate students, parents, and teachers on the importance of taking the survey seriously and in obtaining their honest assessment of our after-school all-star program. Implement this survey to your designated student and parent groups by carefully planning the use of your computer lab and working it around your existing after-school program schedule. And for Coretta Scott King, Best, and Harper Archer site coordinators, please coordinate the use of a classroom to be able to conduct the focus group interviews. Your program coordinator will work with me to schedule these focus groups. Lastly, we recommend that you instruct your fellow teachers that when they take the survey, they should comment on whether they observe a noticeable difference in comportment, study habits, or academic achievement of our after-school all-star students in comparison to the non-participating students. Hints for administering the survey. Please inform survey takers that it only takes 15 minutes of their time. Students must enter their student identification numbers. Thus, it may be helpful for you to take a list of all the student ID numbers in case a student does not remember his or her identification number. Parents must also use their child's student identification number when completing the parent survey. The same recommendation applies. Have a list of student ID numbers ready for those parents that are not aware of their student's identification number. Teachers should use their student employee number on the survey. Here's an additional note. For teachers that you as a site coordinator or principals feel are in the top 10 of all the teachers at your school, please ask them to add 3 additional zeros to their employee number. For example, if their employee identification number is 3467, they should enter 3467000. This will help us apply special attention to their recommendations. No paper surveys will be taken. Every survey must be taken online. Inform survey takers that some questions are similar, but they actually measure different things. Please have them focus on the underlying text of each specific survey question. The survey is very intuitive. They can actually go back to a previous question and change the answer, or they can save the data and they will be sent an email link so they can complete the survey later. Important. Please tell all survey takers to add comments in the comment section at the end of the survey before they submit it. These are the links to the specific student surveys, former student surveys, teacher surveys, and parent surveys. All site coordinators and teachers that will be assisting in administering the surveys should take the survey prior to instructing others how to complete it, so you know exactly what to anticipate and how to coach them through the survey. Thank you very much. This concludes the presentation. If you have any questions, please contact James Rubalcaba at 678-520-3686.